Hey guys, welcome back to Time Machine Scale Models. Matthew over at modelcarvideos posed a question why we build what we build. So I figured since everybody was doing it, I would jump in too. I think in order to answer that question, I think each individual has to look at their history. And I think the influences on what they build and why they build it has a lot to do with the influences they had as a kid. For me, I started building model cars probably between the ages of 6 and 8, probably closer to 8. And I remember my first model car being Boss Hogg's Hauler. It was an MPC snap together. It was a van. And I'm not sure what came after that, but I do know in my preteen and teen years, my model building kicked into high gear. And I built model cars because I was influenced by the things that I saw around me. I grew up in a very large family with a lot of gearheads. Okay, we had cars of all makes and models, so it wasn't uncommon to see Cadillacs to Mercury Comets and everything in between. I grew up working in the garage with my uncles, handing them tools, shining hubcaps, and basically learning. My parents took me to car shows. My uncles took me to the racetrack. And I think at that very early stage of my life, being around cars and the racetrack, that cemented my love for automobiles. We were surrounded by car culture then. When you look at our TV shows, our movies, and even our music, it was all about car culture. When I was a kid, we had Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, Simon and Simon, Miami Vice, Hardcastle, and McCormick, just to name a few. And each one of those featured cars of some sort. There were other shows as well. I mean, when you look back and look at the TV shows that featured cars as stars, there's a ton of them, right? There's a show that I remember fondly, Bad Cats. It featured a beat-up Chevy Nova. A lot of people don't remember that show, but I do. So, when you look at the kits that you build, I think one of the things that most people are saying is because they built it when they were a kid. And for the most part, that's true because a lot of these kits have been around for decades and they've been reissued decade after decade, year after year, what have you. And I probably built most of them a time or two. I know there's several up here that I have built many, many times over the years. Probably once every other year I built that model kit. You know, you have too. So when you look at it, you have to consider all that. My dad was not a gearhead. As I said, my uncles were mechanics. They were gearheads. They loved cars. They used to drag cars home in all different conditions. And they would drag a junker home and they would build it up and it would shine like a diamond in a goat's ass. So that's my influence. My dad did not work on his own cars, but he was brand loyal. My dad was a Ford guy. And although he had cars of all makes and models through the years, he was a Ford guy. I came home in a 1965 Mustang convertible, okay? And later on in my childhood, he owned a 69. My dad's best friend, Butch Swartwood, was a Mopar guy. And anytime he showed up at our house, he was driving a Roadrunner, a Challenger, a Duster, or one of his Dodge trucks. So for me, being later in my teen years, I wanted to be a Mopar guy too. And that led me to owning a bunch of Mopars over the years. My first car was a 74 Dodge Dart. From there I bought a 72. And I also owned a 75 Dart Sport, aka Demon. I've owned 1968 GTX in B5 Blue and a 1970 Super B in Mystic Gold. So early on I was a Mopar guy as well because of those early influences. Because of those early influences, I just love the invention of the automobile. Every era, I would say. Some eras more than others, but I think that's why I build what I build. I build everything and anything that interests me. It does not matter what it is. So even though I have a lot of fat fendered cars, hot rods, and stuff like that, I still pretty much will build anything of interest. Brass era cars, all the way up to something that's newer, even imports, right? So like I said, it's a hard question to answer without reflecting on your past. So I hope this answers the question. I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.